Well, thank you all for joining us. Really happy to be joined by a number of important partners here. Of course, we have Mayor McLean joining us from Boise, Idaho. Welcome, Mayor. Nice to see you. We have
Great to see you. It's good to be here.
We have our County Executive, Ryan McMahon, who I know you know. County Executive and I visited Boise last year, May of 2023. We have Joe Nemi here representing Micron. Welcome, Joe.
Hey, Mayor, how you doing?
We have our city auditor here, Alex Marion.
Hi, Mayor. How are you?
Hi, Alex.
And we have Common Councilor Marty Nave here. Welcome, Councilor Nave.
Welcome, Mayor.
Well, thank you. Hello,
So,
Councilman.
Number of folks I want to recognize that aren't with us here today. Of course, all of our common councilors who have been supportive of our efforts all along the way. Of course, county executive couldn't do his job without the legislature, and they've been great partners as well. Want to recognize our partners at all levels of government. Our state delegation has been a significant partner and supporter of the Micron opportunity. Of course, Governor Hochul, through their partnership, passing the Green Chips Act was a significant reason why we were able to secure the Micron opportunity. And of course, at the federal level, we would not be here without the Chips and Science Act passed in 2022. Of course, that wouldn't have happened without President Biden, Vice President Harris, and the Senate Majority Leader and our senior senator, Chuck Schumer. Again, just invaluable partners, and without any one of them, we wouldn't be where we are today. But we are here, and we're thrilled to be joined by Mayor McLean. I had a chance to participate briefly in Mayor McLean's council session last evening. I don't envy the fact that you participate in those daily council sessions, Mayor. I enjoy a good relationship with our council, but it's probably because I'm not in the chambers for every meeting. So it was fun to see that in action, and it was good to connect with some of your councilors. So before we, the reason we're here today is to talk about the growing relationship between the city of Syracuse and the city of Boise and our respective regions. It of course has been established and growing since the Micron announcement. Again, I mentioned the county executive and I had a chance to visit last year. As I said last night, you have a beautiful city. We really enjoyed our time there. I think we both spent some time down on the Riverwalk and downtown, and with the mountains in the background, just stunning. And of course, had a chance to visit the Micron facility, a very impressive facility, and a glimpse in terms of what's to come here in our community. So before we move on any further, Mayor McLean, I just want to give you a chance to say hello and offer some thoughts about what brings us here today.
Well, thank you, Mayor. I really appreciate this chance to join everybody, and I'm excited about what's ahead. As you heard last night, our city council passed a resolution recognizing this new relationship between Boise and Syracuse, this sister city relationship. And I think it's so important and really exciting because both of our communities, as the mayor said last night, both of our councils, our vision for our city is to make sure that we are safe and welcoming for everyone. With housing folks can afford, parks you can walk to. In Boise, our goal is within 10 minutes, transportation system that works, and of course, jobs and opportunity for everyone. And so with the passage of CHIPS, I want to thank, as you did, President Biden, Vice President Kamala Harris, and the team at Commerce that developed the CHIPS and Science Act. With that passage, it created a huge opportunity for Boise and for Syracuse. And as I think about it for Boise, the work that we've done to ensure that Micron picked Boise to invest here and that the CHIPS and Science Act brought great funds into our city. Now together, you and I, the county executive, others, our city councils, can work together to learn from each other, to collaborate, to ensure that both our regions, friendly competition, right? Friendly collaborative competition, that both our regions have the opportunity to be clusters, to be that place where folks go for memory excellence, that our residents have the opportunities we want for them and that they deserve. We can learn from each other, advocate together, and make sure that we do all we can to support the needs of our residents, and fully implement the CHIPS and Science Act right here at home in Boise. And it's why I'm excited about this relationship with Syracuse, because you're doing it too.
Great. Thank you so much, Mayor. Again, we wouldn't be here without so many partners, but we certainly wouldn't be here without County Executive McMahon and his vision for the site that ultimately Micron selected, the investment that was necessary to prepare that site and make it what it is today. And so, County Executive, thank you for your partnership. We'd love to hear some words from you.
Well, I think it's exciting, and I think this is great. Both Mayor McLean and Mayor Walsh, the mayor and I were actually in San Francisco not too long ago hosting supply chain events, and the opportunities for the communities are just unprecedented. The largest private sector investment in the history of the country happening here in Onondaga County. But on scale, the investment happening in Boise is probably as big as Idaho is a smaller state than New York. And so what the opportunities for us to learn from what Boise has already accomplished with Micron to date, some of the ongoing relationships and how we can maximize these opportunities, but also right now you are underway constructing a new mega fab and the challenges that foreseen and unforeseen that we can learn from and continue to build. But Mayor Walsh is right. Boise is a beautiful, beautiful city and has many of the same characteristics that we have here in upstate New York. So I'm excited to see this relationship happen, and flourish. And I know Sanjay and the team at Micron are as well.
Great. Thank you, County Executive. Again, speaking of Micron, we have Joe Nemi here. Joe, thank you again for joining us. Please send our regards to Sanjay and the entire team. It's been a pleasure working with you. You know how hard you are at work. It may not be visible for folks that drive by the site now, but there's a lot of work underway, hiring underway, and we very much appreciate Micron's commitment to Central New York and to Boise. So with that, the reason, again, that we are together today is to formally establish our sister city relationship. We have a joint proclamation. Of course, we're not in the same place, so we can't sign it together, but we're going to sign it virtually. I'm not going to read the whole thing because it is long, but I'm going to read a highlight from the proclamation. Mayor McLean and I will then sign it. I'll share some closing words and then we'll open it up. So without further ado, the proclamation reads, whereas Boise, Idaho has been selected for Micron's new R&D facility, and Syracuse, New York has been selected for Micron's mega fabrication facility with support from an historic $6.1 billion CHIPS grant investment from the U.S. Department of Commerce. And whereas Boise and Syracuse both consider businesses that contribute to the development of industry clusters as critical to our cities and regions' economic base and essential to building a strong, resilient regional economy. And whereas Boise and Syracuse are prepared to meet the moment to ensure our current and future workforce has access to quality, diverse, and affordable housing options, accessible public transportation, community health and family support networks, clean, green space, and community amenities to ensure our residents are able to work, live, and play in our respective cities. And whereas a sister city relationship between Boise and Syracuse will provide a platform for collaboration on economic development initiatives, sustainable development practices, educational exchanges, and cultural understanding. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that the 14th of August, 2024 hereby establishes a sister city relationship between the city of Boise, Idaho, and the city of Syracuse, New York. So with that, Mayor McLean, we can go ahead and sign the proclamation.
I'll sign my copy.
And we will make sure it is official. We will make sure that whoever visits the other one first will bring our proclamations and we will sign them together. And,
that's a good idea.
But for our purposes, I think that makes it official. And again, I just want to thank Mayor McLean and all of our partners for this. And just because we had not yet signed the proclamation, the work is very much well underway. As I mentioned, when the county executive and I were out there, we met with a number of different partners. We had a workforce roundtable at Boise State, which I think is already proving to be valuable for both communities. One thing that I shared last night is that I think in addition to having Micron in common, our values as they relate to economic opportunity are very much aligned in our desire to lift up our entire community through these investments, especially those communities that have historically been left behind by these investments. So again, really appreciate the spirit in which we are entering this partnership. And Mayor, just want to give you a chance to offer a few closing words before we open it up for questions.
Well, thanks. This is exciting, and I too appreciate this opportunity to make official the work that we've been doing together, because it creates more opportunities for more members of our communities to engage as well. I look forward to seeing you soon, to growing this relationship and ensuring that the families in both our communities are able to fully take advantage of this opportunity that we've been presented with, and look forward to working together.
Great. Thank you, Mayor. With that, I'll open it up to questions from the media.
I can begin. Mayor McLean, it's Andrew Donovan from News Channel 9 in Syracuse. We've met before. I know you can't see me on camera.
I saw you earlier. Hi there.
How are you? Wondering if you heard Mayor Walsh bring up that people driving by the Micron site here don't see anything actually happening yet. The people in this room know all the work that's happening, but what can you tell this community about Micron keeping its promises, about that anticipation planning before you're actually seeing the work? I know you've already had ground break on the child care center and the fab there. Would you speak to Central New Yorkers who haven't seen this yet here?
Sure. I mean, what I'd say to that is that's why CHIPS investment is so important. And it's why, at least in Boise, we worked hard to make sure that a CHIPS investment was made in Boise, because there's a commitment not only to the community of Boise and to the community of Syracuse, but there's a commitment to the federal government that comes with this CHIPS investment. And so in many ways, I think that's the magic of the CHIPS and Science Act. Not only is there funding for incentives that require companies to invest in communities from the bottom up, sign on the dotted line, and build opportunity. There's investment for R&D, and then there's support for these CHIP cities like Boise, like Syracuse, to ensure that we're doing all we can in partnership with the administration to bring more funds and investments home to serve our residents. So yes, in Boise, we will be celebrating the ribbon cutting of a child care center tomorrow morning. There are many, many cranes. I drove by the site last week, many cranes at the site. It's quite shocking, to be honest, to see the number of cranes and the scale of construction at this point. The jobs here in Boise are real, but it is the CHIPS investment made possible by President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris that will ensure that our communities benefit as intended from these opportunities.
Thank you.
Piggybacking on that question, this is Holiday Moore. I'm with WAER, the NPR affiliate in Syracuse. Mayor, just on Andrew's question, just if you could expand for the public, how far ahead are you to us? How much the anticipation that I'm thinking they're wanting to know about is how long do we wait before we see something that says, yeah, this is real. This is going to be the money's being put where their mouth is.
There are two mayors on this call, so was that directed at me?
Yes.
Great. Okay, thank you. Thanks. The Boise investment is both research and development, so the R&D portion of Micron's work, as well as the fab that's tied to their R&D. And so they've got to build that here to then have the technology and the perfected memory to send to Syracuse for production. And so I believe I look to the county exec and Mayor Walsh. My understanding is that there's hiring occurring, things are happening in Syracuse. Boise's in a different place because we're that first step in the process. And they began construction here before the finalization of the CHIPS investment.
Yeah, just to touch on that, all the hiring has happened as been reported, and certainly Joe wouldn't be here with us today if hiring wasn't occurring. But in addition to that, the environmental reviews are rigorous, and so you have a state and federal environmental review. Tens of millions of dollars are being invested at all levels, the county level, Micron even more, to get those reviews done. Those reviews will be the roadmap for all the various improvements that the community wants to know about related to transportation infrastructure, what we'll do with wetland mitigation, how we'll protect other aspects of the environment. And so that document, it will be likely prepared and finished later on this year. And then there's a process of public engagement. And after that's done, at that point, if we can meet a timeline, certainly you'll start seeing significant clearing on the site of trees and construction later on in 2025.
Mayor Walsh, is there an apples to apples thing here? I mean, Idaho's a way different state than New York State, so what they've gone through, is that the same thing that you're gonna go through here in New York State, you know what I mean?
Yeah, well, there's certainly a lot to learn from what's happened in Boise. Again, Micron's been there for a long time. And I think that, you know, for us, as we began to develop our relationship with Micron, there were times when it felt almost too good to be true. That the way in which I mentioned how our values align with Boise's, our values align with Micron's as well. And so to go out in Boise and see where Micron has made their investments, not just in their facilities, but in the community, was really impactful. And so again, for us, I think that just made it that much more real. So you know, again, on the workforce side, I think we have certainly some things to learn in terms of their workforce attraction, retention, and training efforts. I think Boise has some things to learn from us in terms of the way in which we've invested in some of our surge workforce programs, investing in underinvested communities and helping fill the skills gap for our residents, so they're in a position to take advantage of these job opportunities. So yeah, I think we've already begun learning from each other. But yeah, when you go out there and you see the impact of the project and of Micron as a corporate citizen, it says a lot about what we can look forward to here in Syracuse and Central New York for years to come.
Why take this step, the sister city status? What does that do?
Well, it's funny, Mayor McLean and I kind of joked initially when we had the conversation that, you know, I think early on in our times as mayor, we were a little suspect about the sister city relationships, just because you want it to be meaningful. You don't want it just to be a photo op. For what it's worth, you know, this is now the third sister city relationship that we've really invested in. There's some ones historically, but of course we have European and Ukraine, and that one is meaningful for very different reasons, given what's happening in Ukraine right now and the impact to our local Ukrainian community here in Syracuse. Another relationship that was established many years ago, but was recently reinvigorated is with the city of Chiayi in Taiwan. When county executive and I went to Taiwan, we spent most of the time in Taipei, but I made it a point to go take a train down to Chiayi, where there is the semiconductor industry is established as well. TSMC has a presence there. And so, and we're now looking forward to the mayor of Chiayi returning a visit here to Syracuse, hopefully in the coming months. So I think what we both agreed upon is if we were going to do this, there had to be meaning and substance behind it. And as we've already addressed, there already has been. And so it just seemed appropriate that we formalize it and really, hopefully, serve as a model for what a true sister city relationship looks like.
So is there some sort of legal impact to this, or is it just totally symbolic?
Well, it's neither. It's, you know, there's no formal legal agreement that we enter into, but it's also not symbolic. We are making commitments to invest in the relationship in specific areas. Again, I'll just repeat them for folks. Joint advocacy. And Mayor McLean and I are already doing that, as is the county executive. But Mayor, maybe you could talk on that note just a little bit about our efforts with the U.S. Conference of Mayors.
Would be happy to. And I want to echo that for Boise, it's rare that we have a sister city relationship. This is the first in my term that we've established. We have a couple of legacies, and did this because we do want it to be real. We want to memorialize and recognize the work that we're doing together as two cities, two mayors, and now my city council is really excited about expanding that relationship to ensure that we are advocating for our residents, making sure that the CHIPS investments made in our cities yield the results and the vision that brought them, and that we do everything that we can to support our workforce development, educational institutions, other economic development work to be able to grow the semiconductor industries in our respective communities, collaborate together, but also learn from each other. Because there are many challenges that are really opportunities that come with this growth, expansion, and new job opportunity for our residents. I'm chairing the CHIPS implementation, I'm chairing the CHIPS Implementation Task Force at the U.S. Conference of Mayors. Mayor Walsh is a member of that task force as well. We will be working together with other mayors of CHIPS cities to advocate, as we mentioned, to problem solve, make sure that we're learning from each other and doing all that we can to support workforce development, the trades, our community colleges, our universities, and working side by side with the administration to, again, problem solve, provide feedback and ideas for how we can best support the cities like Syracuse, like Boise, in the efforts that those cities are undergoing to support the rehoming and growth of the semiconductor industry in our country.
Thank you, Mayor. So Mayor covered the other areas that we're committed to, and I think those are kind of the parameters for the relationship. Certainly not limited to those areas, but we wanted to identify specific areas where we would be intentional in investing in the relationship. But I think we all expect that more will come from it as we grow.
I have a question for you, Mayor McLean, and actually Mayor Walsh, this for both of you. The pain points in having, I mean, there's obviously huge benefits, economic benefits. We're seeing it in Chandler, Arizona with Intel. So this question comes off of that. What pain points as far as housing are you all seeing, or benefits are you seeing so far? Because our housing has gone up astronomically, and it seems to be with the announcement and the visit of Biden, President Biden, to the Syracuse region. Are you seeing something similar out there? And is it kind of a 6 months or a year ahead kind of pain point we could be seeing, which is we're lacking the housing for the people who are expected to come?
Sure, that's a great question. And actually, the accessibility and affordability of housing is one of the main drivers for why I ran for mayor 5 years ago. Because in Boise, we were seeing that not everyone that lived and worked in Boise could afford, or excuse me, not everybody that worked in Boise could afford to live in Boise. And I am committing to ensuring that we have a home for everyone that chooses, to work in the city, to call Boise home. This is a national issue. And I say that because I don't want any of us to think that there's any one reason that our residents are experiencing issues and concerns around affordability and affordability of homes. And so we've taken at Boise an all hands on deck, true portfolio approach to addressing affordable housing, looking at the incentives that we can create. They're few. Our city is very different than New York and Syracuse, but we're using all incentive ideas that we can come up with to encourage and incentivize more affordable housing. We've looked at our zoning codes because we had outdated 1960s zoning codes that weren't reflective of the community that we are today and the expectations that our kids and theirs have and will have. And we've looked at public-private partnership in creating housing trusts. I just celebrated the opening of a private housing land trust this morning, where we help provide down payment assistance to new residents that were buying homes that were income constrained. So there's a lot of work that we're doing. There's a lot of work cities around this country are having to do because we're underbuilt and housing is becoming less and less attainable. However, there's so many things that we can do, and incrementally we can make a difference. I know that the team in Syracuse will make a difference. We'll be learning from each other, looking to investments from private partners, as well as additional investments from the federal government to help us all ensure that our residents have housing that's safe, affordable, and accessible for them.
Yeah. Sounds familiar, right? Just want to reiterate Mayor McLean's point that the real estate conditions here locally are reflective of what's happening across the country. We're certainly seeing them more acutely than some other places. But specific to the city of Syracuse, our challenge isn't so much the number of housing units right now, it's the quality of those housing units and the affordability of those housing units. So it's that combination of quality and affordable housing that we are focused on and investing in. We have, again, sounds familiar with the zoning code. We had a 1960s era zoning code. We overhauled that, calling for more density, more affordability. We're taking those steps, but it is a challenging environment for sure. But on top of that, we have conducted our housing study, which has led to our housing strategy, which is advancing forward. We aligned that with the county's housing study and efforts, and there's a regional housing study it's underway as well. So it is certainly a challenge. While it was certainly not created by Micron, I think we all understand with the growth that we expect to follow, it has the potential to exacerbate those challenges unless we are really intentional and urgent about our investments in quality affordable housing.
County Executive McMahon, obviously the cities are the same level of government. I'm wondering how the county kind of fits into what it can learn from the relationship with Boise, Idaho, and what Micron and Boise's partnership for decades now can do for the Onondaga County level.
Well, the city of Syracuse is an important part of the county of Onondaga. So I think that's important to understand. And part of your selection process when you're, competing for investments from companies like Micron is you have to have a place for them to go, right? And you have to be able to deliver unique capabilities for infrastructure. Then you need a community story to tell, and the city of Syracuse is an important part of that. The comeback downtown and the lakefront. So I think those are really important. I think overall, a couple things. What's really important about this relationship to learn is Micron is now the anchor tenant of this community and of the state of New York. Micron has been the anchor tenant in Boise, so you can really learn how to build off of that relationship. Two, I believe the mayor has a $15 billion investment to $20 billion being invested right now, and all the different challenges with that we're kind of looking at, we can learn from. I would just like to point out the housing thing is that Micron will be a catalyst for private sector investment. Today, we have an inventory challenge in our community. And when you have an inventory challenge, that means prices go up. There hasn't been a private sector catalyst like Micron for 40, 50, 60 years. There's a reason why companies across the country and even globally are now looking at our community. So there's a lot that we're watching and going to learn from with what's happening in Boise, and really looking at, the mayor referenced our meetings when we were there. That was a working, I believe you were there with us, Andrew. That I wish we had more leisure activities while we were in that beautiful part of the world, but Mayor McLean and the Micron team had us working. And so we were going through about all these partnerships that Micron has with Boise today, and how can we replicate those, enhance those, and then work together and learn from each other.
Other questions?
Mayor, just quickly, if you've got other sister cities, would you quantify this as saying this is like the different kind of sisters?
If you're asking me if I have a favorite sister, I'm not going to go there. I love them all.
But if you could quantify this, what makes this different?
Yeah, well, again, I think as I described, each relationship is based on different circumstances. But when you talk about when you look at the other sister city, I think we have the most in common, certainly with Boise. There's a lot that's different, but they're a little bit bigger, and of course we have Micron in common. And so, when looking for, I say it at least once a day within these walls, let's not reinvent the wheel. Let's go find a community in a city that's doing it better, and let's replicate it, cater it to our own unique circumstances and needs. And again, I think both cities can look at each other and see those opportunities. That's what makes it different.
What did you see that when you were out there visiting, either one of you would like to answer this, what did you see that you thought, wow, Syracuse would benefit knowing this, or Clay, or the areas in between?
I think the wow factor for me were the number of cranes in the sky, and I know the county executive shares that.
Yeah, it's hard to really fathom what the campus looks like while you're there. And I think the other thing is how engaged Micron was. At the time when we went there, we had a deal with Micron. We were in a courtship for over 2 years with them. Community Investment Committee, all these things were known, but to actually see kind of Micron practicing those values in Boise and how integrated they were in the community was impressive.
Well, then we should ask Mayor McLean what she saw in Syracuse when she was here for President Biden's visit this year. Other than Channel 9, because you visited
Other than
us.
Channel 9. Yeah, that was my field trip early in the morning. It was great to be out there. I would say, for me, it was returning home. As many of you know, my parents still live there. I have a brother in Auburn, and my parents are in Casanova. So I hadn't been back in a while. And I got to tell you that to see the downtown, especially the area around the Armory, in the absence of my time there was quite striking. It was a quick visit because it was such a sudden announcement, and so exciting to have the president decided that he was going to announce in person and in Syracuse this CHIPS investment, and that's why I was there. I'm sorry to miss you, Mayor Walsh. I know you weren't able to make it. I'll say this, we have a lot to learn from each other. And to the question about why this is different than others, in my mind, in some ways it's simple. We speak the same language. We have the same federal government. We're both working to ensure that we take advantage of the investments that this administration, unprecedented investments this administration is willing to make in cities. And we're growing jobs tied to a similar, the same company and an ecosystem to support the same industry. And for that reason, I thought that this was a really valuable relationship to memorialize.
I have one more question. Yeah. If you have time. The movement to build Micron out there, Mayor McLean out there in Boise, and moving out to Chandler, Intel, building nanochips. You all here in Syracuse and Clay building another Fab Lab. Fab Labs were not built that often. For 40 years, we didn't see Fab Labs built this quickly. Is this movement giving you guys any kind of insight as to what is happening in Taiwan and what will shift to the United States? Because what I'm hearing and seeing and having written articles on this way before I came here, we're looking to make ourselves the nanochip center so that Taiwan can move out its nanochip technology if it's threatened by China. What are you guys hearing on these two ends as far as that great responsibility, if that's the case?
I can tell the county executive wants to answer this.
Yeah, I think.
And I'm just going to jump in. I had a 12:30 stop, so at the end of this one, I'm gonna bow out.
Thank you.
Yeah, certainly the geopolitical challenges and supply chain challenges that we lived through the pandemic drove the momentum behind what actually Senator Schumer had been pushing for a long period of time. And it wasn't just the CHIPS and Science Act, quite frankly, the New York investment, arguably the investment tax credit was arguably more important than the CHIPS and Science for the New York investment that Senator Schumer pushed through as well. So I think the driver was we lived through a pandemic where supply chains were quickly disrupted, specifically in one part of the world, and it impacted the rest of us. The aggressive geopolitical happenings around the world are troubling and can disrupt supply chains again, specifically in around Asia, where the semiconductor industry is highly focused. I don't think we're essentially competing for Taiwanese jobs. I think we're talking about new technology and new investments that if these Taiwanese companies want to service their clients, they're going to have to grow in North America and Europe as the industry is going to diversify itself.
Unless Mayor McLean, you want to add something to that?
Yeah, I'll just add to that. I mean, I'm going to let the national security experts speak to national security, but the bipartisan infrastructure law, the Inflation Reduction Act, and the CHIPS and Science Act, all three pieces of legislation together are directed at building back America and investing in this country. And with the CHIPS and Science Act, Boise and Syracuse, is a part of that. But now all major manufacturers of chips in the world have committed to investing in America, and we are the only company with all of them investing in building fabs in the same country. It's a success. I would say we're in the middle of building out the vision of CHIPS and Science, and it's a success. And so my thought is that this was done when you take those three bills, because there's a recognition by the administration that we need to invest in America, bring manufacturing jobs back to this country, grow our cities by supporting our people. And each one of those pieces of legislation is a part of that. And together is a complete package that shows a vision of a productive and vibrant city by city, state by state country that President Biden has. And Boise and Syracuse are one of the few lucky places that get to reap the benefits of all three of those unprecedented packages of investment in our country and for us and our cities.
Thank you, Mayor. I know you have to go, so with that, we'll wrap. Mayor McLean, thank you for your continued partnership and collaboration. Really excited about our new sister city relationship. County Executive McMahon, thank you. Joe, thank you. And Mike Ron, City Auditor Marion, Councilor Nave, thank you. Media, everyone who joined us, thank you. Take care.
So, Mayor.